Well, I'm here to tell you these best company lists are BS. They're total BS. And if you don't believe me, I'll prove it to you. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, Enron. Remember Enron, everybody? Yeah. Best company to work for. Number one. Where is it? Enron. That's the Kenneth Lay. You're the best. Best, right? Thank you. Thank you, Fortune Magazine. Hey, I just read this ranking about this one company. Is it really the best place to work? No, no, it's not. Hello, my name is Michael Denisoff. I've dedicated my entire professional career to help organizations be highly successful and high performance, as well as have great and robust cultures. And this is the Work Trauma How Do Corporations Really Work podcast. On today's episode, we talk about the scam of best places to work rankings and the business media. Beware. All right, let's talk about this. So this is how we see a lot. It just drives me nuts. I get it. We're Americans. We like top 10 rankings. We like, David Letterman, the top 10. We like that. We like to see these stories. It's often clickbait. We like it. Whether it's, the best rock bands of the 90s or your favorite rom-com list or the best TV shows of all time, we like them. I get it. We like them. At best, things like that, they can cause a good discussion, right? Now, if you want to say the highest rated, most watched, that's a better thing than the best, right? Because the best gets very subjective very quickly, right? So at their best, these kind of rankings, they're subjective and they're great for starting discussions. No, Stairway to Heaven by far is the best rock and roll song. No, it won't get fooled again. It's fine. Those are fine things. It's great, but not necessarily when you're picking out a place to work or you're evaluating a company for yourself, right? So at their best, they're good for discussions. At their worst, they're very deceitful and they have an agenda. They often have an agenda. So I mean, just take People's Magazine, Most Sexiest Men Alive issue. There's not real criteria going on there, right? It's 10 or 12 people sitting around a table, probably a glass table in one of those glass offices on a fancy building somewhere in New York City or LA or something like that. And they're discussing. And what are they discussing? Who's the sexiest person around? There's no criteria. A lot of that's influenced by what's hot. I'm sure there's a lot of studios who are putting pressure on, I'll pick this person because they have two movies coming out this week, or the talent agency or the publicist puts a lot of pressure on these people. And then in the end, I don't care what these 12 people really think. Right. So they're silly. They're silly at best. Okay. Which is fine, by the way. Their purpose really is to cause discussion, get clicks, sell more magazines, whatever. And that's fine. But when we get to great company lists, I feel there's a larger issue at stake. You're trying to really say what's a great company to work, and you really want to, believe those. You want, and you want to believe you work at a great company, which, by the way, also taints the information, all right, or taints the rankings. But you want to look at these lists, right? What's the best company to work? Well, I'm here to tell you these best company lists are BS. They're total BS. And if you don't believe me, I will prove it to you. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, Enron. Remember Enron, everybody? Yeah. Best company to work for. Number one. Where is it? Enron. That's the Kenneth Lay. You're the best. Best, right? Thank you. Thank you, Fortune Magazine. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, yeah. Power broker. Jeffrey Skilling. Smartest guy in the room. Nerdiest guy in the room. Business Week. Thanks, Business Week. Such a powerhouse that Enron is. Thank you very much. What is this one? What is this one? The 50 best CEOs. They're Skilling again. So, wow, these lists are really good. Enron, here's some of the big Enron ones I have this pulled off. Most innovative company. This is the early 2000s. Most innovative company. Fortune Magazine. Thanks, Fortune. Good job. America's most admired companies. 2 years in a row. Fortune Magazine. Good job, Fortune Magazine. 100 best companies to work for in America. 2 years in a row. Fortune Magazine. Forbes Platinum 400, Forbes Magazine, world's most respected companies, world's most respected company, Financial Times. All right. So you wonder why I say they're BS? At least I have some kind of evidence for that. Enron, baby, Enron. All right. So let's talk about this, man. The best company list. They're at best fraudulent, right? I mean, they really are. I'm maybe there's one or two out there that are honest about it. But I don't know. I would highly doubt that. Why are they bad? Why are they potentially bad? Well, the media's running it. The media's got issues well beyond business, but that's part of it. Often they're pay for play. So you're paying to be in this contest, so you're ranked. Okay. So anytime there's pay for play involved, I'd be really scared of that. Once in a while, I get somebody like, "Hey, we're gonna put you on this magazine, or we're gonna do a story on you. You have to pay us money." I get interviewed, and people pay me. So what are you talking about? I'll do pay for play. So pay for play again clouds it up. Also, the first question you should ask in any of these best lists is what was the criteria? What was counted and how was it weighted? So usually the criteria is very subpar because it's been done by some young people who aren't in business, who are journalists, who wouldn't even know what criteria to ask for. All right. Although they write business articles and how to be a good leader articles all the time, they really don't know what they're talking about. What else? Well, sometimes companies have people allowed to vote. We have one here downtown Cincinnati where people could vote on it. Well, if you're from a bigger company and if your employees are coerced, or excuse me, encouraged, I'm sorry, not coerced, encouraged to vote for your company, just by default, you're going to be one of the best companies, if not the best company, because you're the bigger company. All right. So that happens, right? Or when you fill out the forms, you're just putting your best foot forward, right? The worst thing that can happen when you have to fill, because ultimately it's self-reporting for the most part. A lot of these are, right? And then the marketing person gets involved, which how I feel about marketing people sometimes, right? So they get involved and they start filling out this form. And when they fill out the form or the answers to what they're being asked about, are they totally truthful? No, marketing people put a good positive spin on everything, right? So it's not about being truthful and making sure that the people who are judging us or assessing us get an accurate picture of our business. No, my job is to make sure we answer the questions in such a way that we get first place or at least top five. Right. So it's just how it goes. So just take all those with a grain of salt. Are they totally worthless? I think so, but at least take them with a grain of salt. All right. So just so you know, I've done this. I'm weird, right? For the last 20. By the way, I realized the shirt I'm wearing. I feel like this is my ode to Matthew Perry and Chandler Bing, by the way. So sorry about that. But for the past 20 years, right? Anytime you see a story about a great company, this is a great company. It's in the ranking, or it's just a story done on the company. I do. I get that general number, and I start kind of dialing that number, and I get random people. I put in different last names, different codes, just to get people. And I will tell you, for the most part, they rarely live up to the story about them. Smaller companies, yes. Bigger companies, no way. At best, they're mixed. So yeah, and I tell you how I do it. I call up and say, "Hey, my name's Michael Denisoff. I'm a business consultant. I just read the story about your company, and it says that you guys are great at this, and you're super innovative, and your leadership is awesome. Is this true?" And rarely is it true. Some exceptions, but rarely is it true. So, how can they be ranked a good company when the majority of employees do not feel that way? All right. So what are you gonna do? But again, why do companies do this? It's a thing to do. It's something that the companies can make money on because it is pay for play, and it just happens. It's silliness, right? So thankfully we have things like LinkedIn now or Glassdoor where you could do your own research, right? But even things like Glassdoor, there are companies now who will tell you how to manipulate your Glassdoor uh, readings, including Glassdoor, I think now, right? You could basically have somebody kind of change it for you so you look as a company better, and you can remove negative comments, right? So even these things have their limitations for sure. So companies now work really hard to hire their employment brand. Well, your employment brand is your brand, and all great marketing people, brand people would tell you the brand is not what you say it is; it's what your customers say it is, right? But now we have the employment brand, so we're going to procure this reputation, and we're going to mess with the Glassdoor numbers or how people perceive us. When often it's really not the case. It's really not how it is. So it's kind of interesting now. But again, these are good resources, but keep in mind, even those can be messed up. All right. So rankings. I mean, top 10 list, best companies to work list, not good. Enron, Enron. All right. Next comes these companies that do national rankings. We know the big ones, right? And I've been a part of these, right? And they are not what you think. And they rank a lot of things from everything from cities to colleges and of course businesses. But I don't take my word for it, okay? Because there's a lot at stake, man. If you become ranked number one, there is a lot at stake. So when there's a lot of stake, when there's a lot of money at stake, things get kind of wishy-washy. The first thing I would do with these kind of ranking companies is validate and verify their criteria. What criteria are they using? I know some of them when they evaluate law schools, evaluate the size of their library. Really? That's a big criteria, how big their library is? Not whether it's good or bad, just how big it is. And a lot of these universities today, they're not putting out great students, great people. I don't know if you met anybody from the Ivy Leagues lately. They're by default not that great because their admissions process is kind of messed up right now. Considering 50 or more percent of the students there are legacy students, regardless of their grades. So you got to wonder about some of this stuff. Is this legacy? Is it reputation, or is it real? I don't know. I'm suspect of it. Unless I went to one of these, maybe I would feel differently. And I would say, yes, damn it, we are number one. We are the best school in the nation. Um, yeah, okay. Um, 3 times I went through this process with a national ranking, and each of the times it was suspect. I was part of the interviews. I was part of the team that kind of prepped for it and made sure my job. I was kind of on these teams. And again, the problem with these things is what? First of all, it's pay for play. Anytime you pay for play, it's not a good thing. Okay. The other thing is you better be bowing down to this agency that's going to assess you. The people who are doing this like to be bound down to. They like the procedure that we get to rank you. We are the judges of what the best hospital is, what the best tech company is, right? So again, kind of scary. Okay. Their criteria is often loose and subjective. It's just like, really? Is this the best criteria you could be using? Certainly there's something better. Also, too, I've seen it, CEOs or board of directors will put pressure on these assessing agencies to kind of get a better score. Because why? Because these companies want to be connected to the big and up and coming CEO. So they'll do it. And thirdly, it's basic stuff, right? When you have, neighbors coming over or your relatives you haven't seen for a while or friends you haven't seen for a while, you clean up your house and you make it pristine. But do you really live that way every day? So it's kind of a facade. Now you should do it. You should put your best foot forward, certainly for your friends and family who you haven't seen for a while. But is it really an accurate depiction of how you live? Well, same thing with these companies. They kind of clean things up. They sweep things under the carpet when the assessors come in. So so is it a real accurate picture for those reasons? And then you got to add, particularly the evaluators are particularly weak. First of all, rarely are they experts in the things that they are assessing because they are assessing colleges, businesses through across a whole bunch of industries, I mean, just cities, just this wide swath. They're going to be experts in all these things. I don't think so, right? So they can be, either not clued in or good intentions, but easily fooled, if you will, but probably not the experts that you need to evaluate it. And then also, again, they like their rings kissed for sure. They like to be treated very well. So you manipulate them by this, like, oh, you're so smart. Oh, great evaluator. Oh, great assessor. Judge us kindly. Can they manipulate it by that? I'm sure it's hard for any human being not to appreciate being wined and dined and told that they're great. So they can be easily manipulated for sure. I remember one organization I was in. There was there is this legendary story which I had heard about. I wasn't there for it, where they decided to get a new logo, spend an obnoxious amount of money with an agency, marketing agency, create a new logo. They spent an ungodly amount of money about it. Nobody liked it. Everybody liked the old logo, and it created quite a schism in the organization. And as a part of the rollout of this new logo, they handed out backpacks with the new logo on it, which most people hated and in protest didn't pick up or threw away and kind of sent messages with how they treated that backpack. So it was a legendary story. I verified it. I heard a lot about it. It would make me laugh and giggle. Um, and it was just kind of a funny story, kind of a story I hear a lot of organizations. They spend all this money on this something that nobody wants or it's really not needed. And the head of marketing think they're brilliant because they just rebranded everything. They freshened the brand. They refreshed. Um, and then what happens, right? So I heard this. It was common knowledge. I would make jokes about it all the time, especially if I would see a backpack. It was always kind of a moment of tension if I would call it out, and then we would get a laugh out of it. So what happens though during the meeting with the assessor? Somehow a story is told how yes, our new logo is just really great. It exemplifies us. Matter of fact, when we got it, we handed out backpacks, and people were so proud of those backpacks. And it was this great story. It's the exact story, the exact opposite of what happened with the backpack and that changing. So, how is this person going to verify it? Well, they certainly didn't even try to attempt. They just like, really, that's really beautiful. That's a great story. Oh, I hope I get a backpack. We'll see if we get you a backpack. Okay, I'd be happy. Be happy to give you a backpack. Again, big money involved, big goofiness go involved. Again, again, are all these rankings bad? I don't know. Would I trust them? Not really. I take them with a grain of salt. So that's my story with the rankings, and how potentially silly they can be, but how painful they could be if you're making decisions based on that. All right. Lastly, let's just real quick hit this: the business media. Business media just drives me nuts. They're like all media today. They don't really want to do their research. They figure just gonna looking on Wikipedia, checking out some tweets was good enough research for them. But man, the business media, this if I could do a TV show, I would actually interview CEOs and ask them real questions. When the CEOs go on these shows, they're putting their best place forward. They're saying how great the business is. And even if things are down, they have a plan to get out of it. And they're really rarely questioned hard on this stuff. So they have these interviews that are kind of weak. They're choreographed. They're very Jimmy Fallon-ish. They're just like, "You're the greatest. No, you're the greatest. You're a great reporter. You're a great CEO." So do you get much out of them? I don't think so. And then you have to ask why. Why would that be the case? Well, because you want access to them. You want to interview the CEO. You want to feel good. You want to be in the in group. You want to be with the cool CEOs. You want to be a part of that milieu, if you will, or that community. So you ask them easy questions, right? We've seen this, we've seen this in '08. '08 was a mess. The big downturn in '08. Why wasn't anybody asking questions about who saw this coming? Nobody really asked those questions. Somebody was responsible for it. Nobody talks about it, right? And then you have people on these business shows being touted as great leaders when all they did was go to the government, beg for money because they were too big to fail, and then they freaking took all this money, my money, your money, taxpayer money, to succeed in the business. And then they're giving themselves $25 million bonuses for being great beggars. I don't know how that works. I don't know how the media supports that. So the media, I would really kind of be so weary of. Um, we talked about Enron. Enough said about Enron. I mean, holy cow, right? It's just kind of silly. So I'm just saying, you got to be careful. A couple years ago, we had. I think she's here. Hold on, I got her. Oh, I have props. Watch out. Like Elizabeth Holmes, right? Elizabeth Holmes. She's awesome. We loved. She's a genius. She wears a turtleneck just like Steve Jobs. She must be a genius. And she was great from the right Elizabeth Holmes from Theranos. I think she's facing jail time or she's in jail. I don't even know right now, right? So why did this happen? How can this total facade become real? Why weren't the business journalists really doing their research, looking into it? After the fact, they were all, oh yeah, this was disgusting. This was terrible, right? You see how many Fortune magazine articles they did on Enron after the fact, how disgusted they were with Enron. Well, why didn't you figure that out earlier? Something wasn't right. Same thing with Elizabeth Holmes, right? How fraudulent, right? But no, not willing to invest in it. Like the narrative, right? Strong woman dresses like Steve Jobs. Next Steve Jobs. This is great. Okay. So next time you hear there's a Rockstar CEO, I'd be very questionable about it. All right. Same with the WeWork co-founder, Adam Newman, right? Talked a big game, bragged about it. Again, this is the wannabe and built up by the press again. It was all hype, all a facade, right? And WeWork is the best. WeWork gonna go great. And again, the bottom fell out from this fella as well. But the press didn't say anything until it was after the fact. Okay. And then most recently, we saw his picture here. Sam, he's a looker. He's a real looker. The Sam Bankman-Fried, right? I mean, how many people go online? How many people called him the next JP Morgan, right? Are you kidding me? Or the next Rockefeller. Are you kidding me? And it was clear that he was titched, man. There's something off with them. But no, he loved the story. It was a great story itself. So he glorified this guy. Plus, he was a little different, and he lived in this weird commune, and he was a vegetarian, and it was a joke. It was a joke. And it was a joke perpetuated by not just Sam Bankman-Fried, but by the business media for sure, right? It's what's wrong, what's going on. It's about selling a story. It's about creating hype instead of telling a true story. That's why I love, if you haven't seen any of the documentaries on the Fire Festival, check them out. They're worth it. They're worth it. It kind of shows everything wrong what's going on right now in business, right? There's so many wannabes. I'll put on a black turtleneck and that'll make me Steve Jobs. Nope. Steve Jobs, he was smart, worked hard, etc. And by the way, not a perfect person either, although nobody's a perfect person, right? Billy McFarland, I'll pull this off. I'm so smart, I'm brilliant. And he was on TV, nobody questioned him, but we all kind of laughed at him when it fell apart, right? So I would be really careful about that. So, what's your solution? All right. So, talk enough about that. Don't believe the hype, baby. Don't believe the hype. Really take everything you read with a grain of salt. Do your own research. Call people in the company. Make sure you evaluate any criteria for the best lists or the most lists. Evaluate the criteria. Can I see that criteria? Now, again, not all of them are bad. I'm sure there's some good ones out there. Okay. But again, when pay for play is involved, it's questionable, right? Again, call people. It's LinkedIn is one of the best things. I reach out to people asking about the company. Learned a lot with one-on-one contacts to them. Yeah, I just, I think you got to go out there, quote the Who, you don't want to get fooled again, right? Don't get fooled again. Don't buy this stuff. See it for what it really is. And go into info that you can trust. What are some good sources that you could trust? Um, yeah, that's all. I have some other stuff here, but it's really about doing your research, being careful who you're listening to. And I'd say this for all media, and figuring out and really writing your expectations for each company. But in the end, be very careful when somebody says next JP Morgan or where's my Enron here or best company to work for. I'd be very, very skeptical on that. All right. This is Michael Denisoff with Work Trauma, how organizations, how companies really work, on this episode about best places to work, about rankings, about the business media, and making sure that you're careful about the information you take in. You have a great time. We will see you on the next episode. Peace out.